Hi everybody, Craig Shacklett here with Casino Marketing University, and this is a new series I'm doing with my friend Juan Romero, CEO of Volante Software. And we got a lot in common. We work with a lot of casinos, and we're both startups in the casino software space, and we want to start bringing people into the journey and kind of be a fly on the wall as we talk through different things that you face as managing a growing company. So Juan, thanks for being here, and I'm excited to start this series with you.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited to be here. I know you and I had a chance to talk. I mean, we've been talking for a couple months now, and it seems like almost, every one of our bi-weekly conversations turns into a mini one of these. So I think it's good to, wrap a name around it and have a dialogue and put it out there. And hopefully some people find some value in it. And, if nothing else, I certainly find value in all our conversations. So I'm happy to be here. And thanks for all the effort that you always put forward to get stuff like this going.
Yeah, it is my pleasure. And so I reached out to you before this to say something that we are talking about internally, and that is branding, brand messaging, how to tighten that up, because we spun off TRIO as TRIO is our VIP player management software. And like your software, it's different than its competitors. And, in the sense that we're not coming into a super crowded space, or there's not a lot of other companies doing exactly what we do, just like with you. So it's been a journey to figure out, all right, how do we communicate what we do, since we can't just say, look what they do, we do it better, because we are doing something a little bit different. Is that something that you guys struggled with or ran into?
Yeah, I mean, of course, when you're looking at the industry holistically and some of the things, either from a process standpoint or a technical standpoint that have gone on, it's like, how do you really define yourself, right? And how do you make it, it's kind of twofold. I think the first one being is that you don't want to get lumped in with something that you're not, right? Which is the first kind of concern. And then the second thing is, how do you bring something that may be new to the industry or maybe a little bit more dynamic and really like in a forceful but like succinct way put it out there. And so yeah, I mean, we went through all that stuff. A lot of times we would call people and mention, at that time, our first module, and it would get lumped into the slot accounting side of things, right? And so it was like, we're not that. But when you're doing this marketing push or you're having these initial conversations, you have a very limited window, right? So I think that through conversations and through experience, you kind of have to lay out what that brand is and make sure that you're putting the value proposition out there, in a meaningful way to whoever it is that you're trying to engage with.
One thing I heard that I really like, somebody, I can't remember who I heard it from, may have been some professor or something, but it's like, think of what you're offering as a job that somebody is hiring you for. And it's like, so what is the job? The milkshake was like the example they use. It's like, what are people hiring a milkshake for? And it's like, what? That's, at first you hear it, it's like, that's an absurd question. But then the way he walked you through it, it's like, they use it for on their long commutes. It's something to keep them entertained, and like, and the way he described it, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So one thing that I've tried to do is like, okay, if somebody's hiring TRIO, what are they hiring us for? And then trying to use that as the brand, to guide our branding, to get that message across. Because one blunder that we did, I don't know if blunder is the right word, but
Learning experience.
learning experience. Initially, we're like TRIO CRM,
Right.
because CRM, customer relationship management, like, I think that's a good way to describe what we do. That's already a brand out there. But in the casino space, CRM is different than just customer relationship management, communicating with customers, staying on top of them. CRM in the casino space, everybody thinks of it as having all these data implications, which is great. It's a good feature of CRMs. But when we said, hey, we're TRIO CRM, everyone's like, perfect. We need all this data stuff, and we want to hear how you solve it. We're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Actually, what you would hire us for is communicating with your players as efficiently as possible. So what we did, we took CRM out of our name, called ourselves TRIO360. But now we're okay. Well, TRIO360, that name in itself doesn't really imply anything. So how do we how do we how do we create marketing messaging to tell people what it is exactly that we do, because we're not going to use CRM anymore as a shortcut. So.
Sure. Yeah, and I think, something that you said there makes a lot of sense. It's what we continuously talk about on our end, especially, on the customer engagement and sales side, which is, let's try and absolve ourselves of talking about the features of our product and really try and focus on what are the solutions that we're bringing to the space, right? And I think a lot of that and a lot of the branding that we're trying to do right now is not only looking at the processes that we're trying to streamline or the data that we're trying to bring to them. So what exactly are they going to get out of the product, first of all? And then the other layer from there is, who are you speaking to? Right? If I'm speaking with somebody that's an operations level manager, their problems and the things that they care about are going to be different than an executive VP, and those things are certainly going to be different than someone that's customer facing and on the floor at all times. So to us, it's not only looking at the product in terms of what features we're trying to solve, but also look at the audience, right? And what matters to this particular segment. And I think we're continuously trying to work on that, and it's a work in progress, and it's really trial and error, like you talked about, and seeing really what resonates with people. But I feel like we're kind of beginning to get a handle on what's important to who by really understanding the underlying issues that they're facing.
You nailed it with the different personas, and that's another thing that as we go through it, we learn is like, what are the different people care about? And this is, if you're watching, you're a casino marketer looking at this perspective from your property, I'm sure you're doing the same thing. It's like, what is the millennial person that is maybe introduced to gaming because they have no other options during COVID? Like, how do you speak to them versus your longtime customer who you want to make feel comfortable that, hey, it's safe to come out of your house and come in. For us, it was initially, it's TRIO CRM, here's what it does. But then you get a conversation with a host, and some things that are great with regards to maybe the transparency, accountability, a host might see that and be like, I don't know if I want my bosses seeing exactly how many calls I'm making or whatever. Not that it's a dissuader, but it's like, maybe that shouldn't be what we lead with. Maybe with a host, it's like, hey, listen, you can actually have a life outside of work. And they like that. Whereas a manager, they may not care so much about giving their hosts more time outside of the house, but they want to see, wow, there's X% increase in bookings and things like that. So, and I don't know if that's something that you can know. I don't think I could have had the foresight to know what the proper messaging was. It was just kind of, you have to go in with something broad and then just see, oh shoot, I wish I had said that differently. And then you kind of learn, oh wow, maybe there's 4 different talk tracks. So with you mentioned it's kind of just up the ladder within the slot department. Maybe it's a slot tech versus like, what are your different?
So we look at the various levels, like from like operational day-to-day type stuff, operational management, executive management, and then we kind of break it out to kind of those support departments that would be a part of these processes with the slot department, whether it's IT, whether it's accounting, whether it's the C-level individuals, and kind of look at it from that perspective. So whenever we're doing anything like even social media or any ads or press releases or and again, going back to the product and what we're trying to solve is, there's a checklist that we run through when we're looking at the feature set, which is, what are we building and how do we include all of those people in the solution? Because not only does that give our brand more, ability to communicate with all the various levels of function, but it also allows us to have a more well-rounded product, right? I mean, one of the things that you just said there that kind of stuck out to me was the whole thing about, there's these various kind of interests in what your system does to play to, a host versus maybe the person who has oversight over those hosts. Doesn't have to be black and white, right? Like, there's levels of gray. Like, that data and the byproducts of using your system, can it be used as a hammer to bring visibility and like oversight to something? Absolutely. But it can also be used for like enhancements and for, like you said, additional revenue trips and making that person's life easier. So there's really 2 ways to look at that side of that coin, right? I mean, there's 2 sides to it, which is, we can use this data and like kind of have this traditional sense of like in and out and black and white and cause and effect, or we can start looking at it from a more nuanced perspective and saying, well, look at this capacity that other people don't have. We're all fighting over the same customers, basically, right? I mean, we're all going for the same market share. How do we use this data together and have a conversation as a host and as an executive, or as a slot technician to a slot tech manager or an analyst, all the way up to an executive VP of slots? How do we use the system in conjunction and the data that comes from it to build something together that's unique to our market, right? And so, I think a lot of that to me is that plays into the branding and the marketing too. Is like, let's come up with the solution. Let's be solution oriented, not cause and effect. So, just another thing to think about there.
So going back to branding, did you ever, because this is something that we are thinking about doing, is hire a consultant to help us like tighten everything up, because now we launched a product, we have a successful customer testimonial, we're having conversations, it's kind of like there's threads going out like, oh, this is working, but as with a lean company, everyone's so busy, it's tough to step back and be like, okay, let's take a deep breath and let's get everything back together with like every feature. How do we create how-to manuals, and how do we make it so it's a cohesive brand message? And we're actually thinking about maybe hiring an outside consulting firm. Now, have you done that, and what was your experience? Would you do it again?
Yeah, so we've worked with several. I mean, and I think that's part of it, right? We can't specialize in everything, right? And there's only so many YouTube videos and articles we can read, and contacts that we have. At some point, you got to go to the people who do it professionally. So we probably engaged with 4 or 5 marketing people over the course of our, of the life of our organization, and they all kind of came in and did something, a little bit different for us. Whether it was collaborating on the website, whether it was defining what our demographic and our marketing and sales approach should be, which included some of the branding, right? And we would definitely do that again. I think that the main thing, or the main piece of advice I would give to anybody engaging with people like that, is look for the people who have a vested interest in collaboration, right? And that sounds so like, well, yeah, of course. But I think there's plenty of industry experts out there on the marketing side, and especially on the digital marketing and social media side, that, I mean, this, how many like LinkedIn connections do you get a day from people trying to provide the types of services we're talking about? I get like at least 10. I don't even know how there's so many marketing people or marketing service providers in the world. There must just be enough customers. But the biggest thing is that collaboration, because the ones that have been the most effective for us fundamentally understood what it is that we did. So there was one lady in particular that worked with us early on and kind of like formulating this concept, and we use that document to this day to define our demographics and our segments. But with little to no help from me at the beginning, she just like threw herself into the gaming industry, and she gave me this 40 some page document. She knew more about it than some of my employees, like from a position standpoint, what they cared about, who they were, connected what we did back down to it. And that document has kind of been the basis for, and it, subsequently is my judging stick for anybody that I hire, period. Is like, do you know what we do? And everyone says, yeah. And I go, no. Do you really have the time to understand what it is that we do and match your expertise about mass communication, digital media, print media, press releases, whatever the case may be? Can you help us take your skill set and through our voice and our tone, give that a medium, right? And so that to me is kind of the next step. Is we had kind of stepped back just a little bit to kind of create our story. So we had worked with this company and this very intelligent lady by the name of Ellen, and she created all this stuff I was telling you about. And then we kind of had to craft our story and the story of our customers and what it was that we're doing. And it's kind of cyclical. So now it's coming back to the point where now we're ready to go out to the masses. We need to find, that voice or the avenues to get there. So I would definitely recommend it, but find someone who's going to engage with you.
This person, because now I'm like, all right, when this ends, I want to get her contact information. You said that she dove in to the gaming industry and she like just she presented you something where it was clear that she knew the ins and outs.
Yeah.
Was she from the gaming industry, or she
No.
just, and did she get all this information from asking you questions, or she went out and like researched it on her own?
Yeah, she researched on her own, man. And when she came back and her and I refined things over the course of subsequent months. But no, she went on to LinkedIn. She read, I don't know how many articles she must have read to kind of, piece that whole thing together. But on top of that, I mean, she just obviously had the cognitive ability and the skill set and the experience to take a bunch of sources of information and put them into, a format and a narrative that was super strong.
And is a project like this, is it generally a fixed rate project, or it's hourly? I expect
Well,
to
I
take
think it's
20
both.
hours or 100 hours or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, it can be done either way. That one in particular was fixed, but I think that, I think the thing is as people that are just starting out and looking at, I can tell you how much cash we're going to have in 2035. That's how much I stare at my cash flow, right? And so the marketing resources that I've always talked to is like, you need to have the capital to put out to really, sustain the type of campaigns and to get the visibility, to get the ROI. And so, you have to really commit to that, whether it's, fixed rate or whether it's through, an hourly side. You got to commit the resources to it. And, when you're to us, like we've poured almost all our money into R&D, right? Because to me, the faster that we can move the product, and the higher quality the code and the more adaptable and all that, the better we're going to be long term, right? And so now it's about kind of shifting that mentality just a little bit and kind of becoming more well-rounded with regard to our capital outlay.
Yeah, no, we're the same way, very R&D focused, let the product speak for itself.
I
And
think
one
that's
thing,
good at the beginning, right? I mean, it's good. Like who cares if we get 5,000 calls and then our product flops? Like, I'd rather have, 7 legitimate conversations and stand on my product all day and know it's not going to bug out, know it's going to give them something they've never seen before. To me, at this point and where we're at, and really, I don't know about you, and I would imagine based on our conversations, I think we'll always feel like that. Like I never want volume. I want the right kind of volume.
competitive advantages, like how did you identify, like, what do we do? Like, how do you zero in on, like, all right, if I can get this point across, I know we got a deal. Like, if I can get them seeing things through this lens, then there's no way they can't buy us. Is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So I think that, that comes from, again, through knowing your audience and knowing their pain, right? Like, so if I'm talking to somebody that's out on the floor, that has to deal with slot records and configuration management or progressive information, do you think they like running back and forth all day long to get records? Do you think they like picking up the phone to figure out that Juan's on lunch and Juan's the keeper of the file cabinet and now you can't get what you need? And on top of it, people are yelling you that games are down. Like, no, nobody wants that, right? And so if to that particular individual, I can go, look, are you tired of getting 30,000 steps a day? We're going to be a detriment to your health. You can only get 10,000 because we're going to put the records right on your hand, right? And it helps them because they don't have to run back and forth. The person who's the custodian of the records doesn't have to worry about them losing anything or being on call 24/7. If we can demonstrate that and demonstrate the value in that, I mean, of course they're going to respond to it, right? And so I think it's doing that at all levels, whether it's through inventory, whether it's through your CRM system, whatever the case may be, is finding those problems, speaking directly to the people, and building a case for how this thing is going to work throughout the entire organization. I think where people fall flat a lot is they target one level, right? So I got the VP, or I got the head of marketing, or the head of slots on the phone, and they're talking to them about a bunch of stuff that doesn't, it impacts them like indirectly, but not on a day-to-day basis.
One thing I heard, and I think this was Russell Brunson, who's a marketing guy online. I haven't listened to him in a while, but one thing I remember he talked about that I loved was, like, you need to find the domino that, like, if your customer, your prospects buy into it, then all the rest of it fall down. all the rest, like it will start out the effect. And for us, it's like, all right, we'll lead off a demo. The mindset is, if your hosts make more outbound touches and they have more outbound touches per hour and they have more time to make outbound touches, you're going to drive more trips, right? The more they're selling, the more trips they sell, they'll drive, and the more revenue will come. So if we can get them to agree to that, then our tool is the best in the market. Obviously, our competitors trying to sell software, maybe the domino is, hey, if you can automate this piece of data analytics, then that's going to make your casino do great, right? So I think for us, it's like our mindset now is like, all right, what is that domino that if we can get everyone to buy in, and that is, and we're not saying don't use data, because we do. I mean, data is super valuable, but we just think, listen, if you think that your host team can be a sales force to drive revenue, and then you want to give them more time to sell, and you want them to be more effective during that sales time, if you agree with all that, then we're the only tool for you.
Sure. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You always ask me the question, so my job here is easy, but how do you think that, how do you think or what has been your experience with like operational aspects being brought up in the scope of your product? Like, so what we get all the time is like, what is it, because some of our processes are new that people haven't had to deal with ever, like especially on the inventory side. It's like, where do we start? What do we do? Right? Do you guys run into that where it's like, this is a new mechanism? What is like the best practices for using your product in our organization, or are you just relying on what they're already doing?
No, ours it's a big shift.
Okay.
I shouldn't say a big shift. I mean, for example, room reservations. A lot of host teams, they're sending an email to a reservation department to book the room, and it usually goes to a shared inbox, and then somebody in the reservation department does it, and then they send an email back, and there's just a lot of gray area, not a lot of structure, where we're like, okay, you have to look up the player, click this button to book the trip, enter the dates, and then it goes here, and it's different steps, and what we have to sell them on operationally is that it's easier and it's going to save you time ultimately. And I think no matter, like, there's always going to be inertia, and even if it would save them time, you need to almost like force feed the first 4 or 5 times to get the habit going. And then they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is great. But and that's something I think with our first deployment that I did not do a good enough job of, was training, because TRIO spun out of URComped. Our team is like, it's so in tune with it that it seems so intuitive that, of course, like as soon as they get in TRIO, they're going to start doing it this way because it's so much easier. But just human nature, I think I took for granted, is that there is, at the beginning, you need to make sure they're training like, look, here's the easiest way to do it. And I know you want to fall back in your old habits, but do this 5 times. And if you still don't like it, fine, keep doing the old way. But I guarantee you're going to like it if you do this. Force yourself to do it for this first week. But yeah, again, that's something that I learned, is no matter how much easier things you think they are, habits are a powerful force, and you need to like force that with training and with them buying in, with their team's management buying in.
I think, yeah, I agree with that. I think the other piece of that is, and this is something that I really need to put an emphasis on now, is this continuous dialogue with the people that are using your tool on a daily basis, and what those enhancements are, because ultimately, we don't want to force anyone to do anything, right? We want to make, and that's kind of hard, because you also can't like build a solution that's custom to everyone. That's not viable, right? But how can we, and we may be spoiled in the fact that a lot of our processes are new, so everyone doesn't have necessarily an electronic way to do it. So we have some more latitude in when we throw something out there. With a lot of the properties that we're working with, they're huge. I mean, they're huge properties. So their processes kind of become best practice for a lot of other organizations that don't have those, those processes or that technology in place. But I think that, where I've seen us have some pretty good successes by, like I said in our earlier interview, trying to spend as much time as we can dialoguing with people and then trying to get them the features that are going to make their jobs that much easier. And I think to us, that's demonstrated that not only is there value in the tool, but there's value in speaking to us, because what you need to make it easier and to, for the system to be more powerful is one call away. Like one of the things that I was talking to, I don't know if I might not have talked to you about this, but we're going to launch a Discord server. That'll be like the next thing that we do from like a professional services side, which I don't know if there's another gaming entity that has a Discord server out there. But essentially what I'd like to do, and it's going to take a lot of work, I think, but maybe create some value in it, is by that Discord server and the channels within it, whether they're for enhancement requests, like kind of like this ability and this medium to not only interact directly with all levels of Volante's organization, whether it be sales, development, QA, professional services, like straight to the core, right? I need these things. And having all of our clients have the ability to access that, I'm hoping that not only that dialogue will take place, but also that they'll talk to each other. Like we're going to launch some interactive, training sessions that happen quarterly for free. And I want all the clients that want to show up. And a lot of them are in different markets, so it's not like they're directly competing with each other. But if we could get some best practice and some knowledge transfer, not only on those calls, but through the Discord, like I could see tremendous value in that.
Now is Discord, is that like Slack or Microsoft Teams, or what is Discord?
Yeah, so it's basically just a piece of software that you can set up your own server, and it operates very much like Slack, right? So you can create various channels, and then there's kind of like a text side and a voice side. It's really a collaboration thing, and it's mostly used like in gaming, right? Like with like gamers, they create their own Discord servers. There's a lot of investor groups that set up Discord servers and, have all these discussions where they share tips and, post memes, whatever. It's basically like a collaboration portal, but it works very much like Slack, right? So we could have a feature enhancements channel. We could have a support channel. We could have a training channel. We could have a documentation channel. You could have like a virtual happy hour meeting. You can do just so much stuff with it, right? And so the real key will be to create value in the actual deployment itself, so people want to engage, right? Because without engagement, it's not very valuable. But I mean, if I have 3 or 4 clients that jump on there and even feed us enhancements or, examples of reports they want to use or best practices for inventory or something, like that's going to be worth something, especially because, I don't know what your experience is, but in mine, in the gaming space, there's like no documentation for nothing. We put such a high level like of like examination on our technical documentation. I can send you a link. You can run my whole product like in probably 2 hours with all the screenshots and all the documentation that we have. Good luck finding that anywhere else. I worked in the gaming space in IT for 12 years. We had books that we carried around that were handwritten, all my technicians, with like tips and tricks from when we would fix stuff wrong with the gaming systems, and no one else had that information, right? So we can kind of create this centralized portal, if you will. Maybe we can do some crazy stuff. Who knows? Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but we're going to try it.
Well, I love that idea for having that Discord, or I think I'm picturing a Slack, but that's a great idea, because I think we will launch, as we onboard a couple more customers, like a monthly just webinar type forum where everyone can tune in and we could talk about new features and get feedback. But I really like that idea of an ongoing open line of communication that everybody can see. So good thing. Yeah,
well,
let us know.
Yeah,
when do you plan on launching that?
I'll probably try and get it going by next week or so. We'll see how everything shakes out, in its preliminary phases. But, the thing that's kind of cool about that is, like you said, like, I can go to Dustin and the dev team and talk till I'm green in the face about something that someone wants, or one of my sales reps. And then, it's like, yeah, but that's not important right now. Well, if there's like a Discord service and everyone is pinging them directly with how having this one feature would change their whole life, maybe that would resonate not only through the entire organization, right?
Yep.
And also the communication goes both ways. So I'm not advocating that our customers just bully dev into doing what they want. But when they bring that up and dev comes back and goes, all right, well, this is the enhancement, this is the requirement, this is what we're understanding, this is our plan longer term. Now we're having a dialogue. It's not Volante doesn't want to do that, and it's not now we have to stop what we're doing to do this. It's like let's have like some cohesive discussion. And maybe I'm like living on another planet where I think that's going to happen, but it happens in real life. I mean, the conversations we have with our clients in real life unfold like that. So I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes. Because
yeah, I'll give you I'll give you a tour of it once we get it up and running, and you can check it out and kind of. If I have to watch one more Discord YouTube video, I might, cut off the internet for a little while because. But we want to get it done right. So yeah, we'll let you know.
Well, as expected, we went over time. I know I was like, let's keep it 20 minutes or so. We're at 35 minutes, but I enjoyed the conversation. I know that as we keep doing this, it's gonna get better and better. And so I hope everyone enjoyed it. If you guys have any suggestions or questions, put it in the comments, whatever channel you're watching this. And Juan, I'm looking forward to the next one in a couple weeks.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you for putting everything together and, being the driving force behind these things. It's always a good time. And like you said, we always go over time. So that must be a good thing. At least we're not running out of things to talk about.
There's never a shortage of things to talk about in the startup world or in the casino space for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Juan.